Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. In this lecture, we will be discussing about another round of tariffs that are being imposed by Donald Trump. So what has he done this time? He has imposed the tariff of 50% on Brazil. So you see what is the reason for doing that and what has been the response of Brazil and what does this mean for the geopolitics of Latin America and of USA with respect to the rest of the world. So let's get started with the news. What is the news here? The news, of course, is about the 50% tariffs that have been imposed on Brazil by USA. Now, what is the reason that is cited? See, till previously with respect to other imposition of tariffs, there were economic reason. Here also one of the economic reason is actually given by Trump, but in addition to that, there is another reason which is mentioned here is the prosecution of former President Bolsonaro by Brazil. So what has Brazil done is, the Brazil or the present President of Brazil and the Brazilian government has prosecuted whom? Jair Bolsonaro, who was the former president of Brazil. So he has been prosecuted in retaliation of this prosecution. Now USA had asked to not do this, but Brazil went ahead and did it. So now USA is imposing tariffs, and one of the reasons that is cited, not explicitly mentioned but is cited or could be understood, logically deduced, is this. Right, there's another reason that we will of course see, but this is one of the reason. Now in response to this, the present Brazilian president, that is Lula, basically he has called it to be an attack on Brazilian sovereignty. Why? Because who is USA to decide whether the Brazilian government should prosecute the former president or not? So USA can't do that, as Brazil is a sovereign nation and have judicial independence whether to prosecute or not. So this and much more is what we are going to see in this lecture. Now before we move ahead, a notification with respect to the new batches that are starting at Legacy IAS Academy. They are starting from 9th and 11th of August. So two batches that will be starting in the month of August. So if you enroll with us, you will be guided, you will be taught by the experts in this particular field. The experts who have already given their personality test multiple times as well and have over 10 years of experience each. Now in addition to that, the edge that you get with Legacy IAS Academy is the one-on-one mentorship program specifically that is provided, and the same faculties that you saw will be guiding you in that. In addition to the test series for prelims and mains which is there, you will also get daily mains answer writing practice. Yes, it's daily, and the batch size is of maximum 40 students. It does not go beyond that in order to ensure that there is individual attention on students. A very interesting, or I would say a very important thing here is the 360-degree current affairs coverage. So how do we do that? One day every week will be dedicated specifically for live current affairs classes which will run throughout the day so as to cover your entire current affairs related topics. So to enroll yourself, you can log on to our website, you can basically call this number or download our app where the provision to again enroll would be provided. Having said that, let's continue with our news. So Brazilian president's response. What has been the response? He is the present president of Brazil who has responded by saying that Brazil will not accept any tutelage. Any tutelage, what does this mean? This means we will not accept anyone's directives. We will not listen to anyone as in the other country. The other country cannot dictate terms. We are a sovereign nation, as a result of which they have rejected Trump's demand to stop the Bolsonaro's trial. So after prosecution, prosecution as in being charged with something and the trial is going on, so USA asked the trial to stop, but the Brazilian president is quite clear and said that it will not stop and it will not listen to any other country because it is itself a sovereign country. So basically Brazil has called out the external interference in domestic legal matters. So basically it has called out the USA. Now What has been Trump's justification for this tariff? One reason which is cited is, of course, the prosecution that is going on. But in addition to this, basically Trump also has an economic reason for that. And the economic reason is the trade deficit that USA has as we speak with respect to Brazil. So that is basically the justification. Now what is the counter argument to this? The counter argument that is coming from Brazil is that it's all right that presently, okay, fair enough, there might be a deficit, but if you look at historically, so basically what Brazil did here is it then started digging historical data, right? If see, you might be saying that this year there is a deficit, but why restrict yourself to this year and suddenly impose 50% of tariff? Why can't you look 5 years back or 10 years back or 15, 20 or the entire history, right? So what Brazil did is Brazil dug up the data books and did all the calculations over the years with respect to deficit, surplus, whatever that might be there, and came up with a number saying that you might have a deficit right now, but if you look at the data, then US has a net surplus of $410 billion with Brazil in goods and services. So what about that? So are your tariffs justified over here? Probably not. Also understanding that Brazil is a developing nation, whereas USA is a developed nation, more cutting edge technology. So Brazil would require to protect its industries more as compared to US protecting their industries. And anyhow, you see the historic data and you understand that there is $410 billion of deficit for Brazil historically. Maybe presently USA, not maybe, of course USA presently is having a deficit, but historically it's Brazil who has had the deficit. So we can clearly see the relation between USA and Brazil deteriorating. So let us understand what has been the timeline for this deterioration of the relations. So it's quite recent. So you can trace it back to 2023. So in 2023 what happened is Bolsonaro was facing the trial for what? For alleged struggle for doing a coup, or the alleged coup attempt that he did. Alleged coup attempt. So the trial is still on, so the judgment has not been taken, but the trial is on for the alleged coup. What is a coup? To topple the government and bring in your own government. That is what a coup is. So for that is what he is alleged. Now at that time Trump was not the president, so tariff imposition etc. did not happen when it was first, the prosecution was being done. But then what happens in early 2025? Trump returns to power. Why returns to power? Because previously also he was the president, then Joe Biden came, and now Trump again is back. So since he is back in power, he will have different ideologies, his own ideologies and his own approach, which we have seen. He is imposing tariffs left, right, center on different countries. And on July 9th, what happens is Trump has announced the tariffs and demands end to Bolsonaro trial. So these things are coming together, as a result of which one reason being cited is this, in addition to the economic reason that Trump has given. Now these tariffs that are there, it is not immediately in effect, but it's not much time left. So from 1st August 2025 it will come into effect. Now, if you also make it, develop a parallel with respect to USA imposing remittance tax or other tariffs etc. on other countries, that is going to come to effect later on. Remittance tariffs under the provision of one big beautiful bill, that's from 1st January 2026. Same is the case with respect to other tariffs and stuff. With China it had a trade war, it has a tariff war with China USA had, which is now at a pause. But with respect to Brazil, it is doing it from the very next month, probably again trying to pressurize to end this prosecution, so that then there might be a chance that negotiation can be done, or maybe wanting Brazil to come to a negotiating table wherein they stop the trial so that these tariffs can be taken back. So very small timeline is given, is the point over here. Now what is the diplomatic and strategic implication with respect to this? So because of this, what would happen is, basically it is undermining the global norms of non-interference. Means if a country, the two countries are sovereign, so one country should not interfere in other countries' legal matter. So that global norm is being undermined. Second, it could trigger a lot of things. It could trigger WTO disputes, Brazil would then raise this issue under the WTO as to why all of a sudden you are imposing this. It has to make economic sense. You cannot have political or legal reasons or some other sovereignty related or your own tutelage to make me do this. So that it will start. It will also shift certain alliances. Brazil would like to be aligned more towards European Union or Asian countries or towards the BRICS countries. So there India can have a slight advantage now, indirect advantage. At the same time, rise of economic nationalism could be there. Economic nationalism means looking at the economy inwardly with respect to the betterment focus, primary focus, major focus on the national needs rather than the global scenario, which of course you can see the flag of China. So China is what does economic nationalism. Everyone else later on. Me first is fine, country will do that, but me first even over and above the global rules and regulation is probably an issue which US is probably doing here, which then will create a domino effect for other countries also. Brazil in general, Latin America in general and Brazil in particular to do the same. Thank you.